Hello, 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 hello. Hi, it's me, Michael, talking to Jeff.
Welcome to Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons, joined by meteorologist Michael Fecca. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great.
I wanted to record these right after the big winter storm that happened here at the, January 24th and 5th, wasn't it?
Correct.
We've slept since then.
One of those weekends.
But I'm talking to all of us just to kind of get a feel for the behind-the-scenes look. A lot of people ask me, well, when do you sleep? Or, how do you live with yourself when we have these winter storms? So I'll turn the same question over to you. First off, were you surprised by the outcome of the storm based on the forecast?
By the outcome of the storm, I wasn't too shocked. Of course, we had that, sleet line mix up a little bit farther north than we were expecting. But for the most part, the storm, it delivered. It delivered us a big old hit of snow, a lot of snow that many of us don't know how to handle around here. So it was exciting.
Well, 12.5 inches is a lot. It's a big snow. I mean, This is big league snow anywhere, but especially here in the tri-state. So talk about inside baseball here in the run-up to it. Now, be honest, are you looking at models we all know when they come down. So are you up in the night, under the cover with your phone, or how do you keep up with it?
No, I mean, I'm not typically waiting up to see any of the models, but it will be one of the first things I do when I do wake up in the morning is just check it. Does anything look crazy different from what I said the night before? And if not, then I say, okay, cool. We'll figure out the rest when we get to the station.
Yeah, it's kind of the exciting part of the job, is trying to figure out, how to communicate what's going to happen. And of course, we have all these platforms. We're on streaming all the time and everything, which is great because we're with the viewers in real time. But how do you manage that part of it? Because people always ask me, well, when do you sleep? Right. So when do you sleep?
Well, I sleep typically, it's really late at night. So I work later in the evening shift. So I'm out of here by around 11 p.m. So usually I'm just asleep by the time I get home. But especially with winter storms and stuff, it's leading up to it. There's the excitement.
Right.
There's the anxiety of being like, am I going to get it right? Or are we going to look like fools? So that's usually what keeps me up at night.
So did you peek? It's kind of like cooking, having a sauce going with a lid, and you're not supposed to lift the lid. So, but did you get up in the night and peek out to see if it was doing anything?
Yeah, I didn't sleep at all that Saturday night into Sunday morning because, I saw the snow. I left the station. I was like, cool, everything's on track. And then I started to hear the sleet pinging on my window, and I was in Evansville, so I was like, oh no. The sleet's coming farther north.
And we know that the sleet will reduce the amount of snow, the accumulation.
Right.
And of course, it's also a bigger travel hazard.
Right. And so it was interesting because we saw that sleet mix at least here a little bit into the downtown Evansville area. But I don't know if it really made it much farther north than downtown because the airport ended up with a lot more snow than, what we saw here, like just at the station. We measured around 7
Yeah, I had 8 inches at my house. I live near the station, and the airport was 12.5.
Right.
And that was my 2-day total was 8 at the house. And I, not that I would put the thumb on the scale, but, looking for the best measurement out there, right? But that's about the best I could do.
Yeah.
Now, I had drifts of 14 inches under, I have the way my house is built and the trees sit, it piles up in some areas. So talk about getting around, because here, you grew up in Philadelphia, they handle snow, right?
Yeah, we handle snow
differently than it's handled here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So you were a little surprised?
Well, I wasn't surprised this time around because I had already, survived last winter here. And, we had that ice storm followed up by another major snowstorm. So, I mean, the roads were just, an absolute mess for several days. So, you had to kind of learn how to drive on that.
Yeah.
And, thankfully I not only grew up in Philadelphia, so we were used to, winter driving and winter weather, but then I went to college in northeastern Vermont and then moved to Bangor, Maine.
It snows in Vermont sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I've heard.
Occasionally, nothing too crazy. But, I'm coming from a lot of snowier places. So coming down here, I was like, yeah, the roads are covered in snow. You
Yeah,
just got to get through them. But obviously, a lot of people don't have, the cars necessary to get through that.
sure.
And then, let alone just, the experience of driving in a snowstorm is a lot
Yeah.
different
Uh,
than not.
I think one of the issues too, and I want to point out real quick, we're not griping about the level of service
Yeah,
to
no,
clear, because these guys and women that are in these plows, 18, 20,
right,
30 hours at a time, you got to take your hats off to them.
exactly.
But I mean, we get flack over the forecast. They get flack
Right.
when something isn't scraped off. And by and large, they had everything the main roads pretty respectable
Oh, yeah,
within about a day.
yeah,
And of course, this happened over a weekend, so you're having these workers coming in,
yeah,
and they might have had trouble getting in just like everybody else. So,
yeah. I mean,
so kudos to them, and hats off to all the guff they must have to endure, when they're out there. So you actually, the station sprung for hotel rooms
Yes.
closer to the station.
right.
Not that you live I didn't think where you live was that far away. You couldn't quite walk here, but
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But it was definitely got me a lot closer. So it was, what would have maybe been, 30 or maybe even a 35-minute drive in the snow was only, a 10, 15-minute drive. So that helped me out a lot, at least getting through this storm, this past weekend. But
did you have a little feeling this would be a big one?
I had a very weird feeling about it because the storm itself, the way it kind of materialized, it was weird. It was a very elongated, area of low pressure. Typically, when you get these big
Yeah,
snowstorms,
it's a bullseye.
it's
right.
a nice tight bullseye circulation. You hear that word bombogenesis and bomb cyclone thrown around a lot.
Right.
But that just wasn't the case this time. So then when I saw, the amount of snowfall it was putting out, I was a little confused. I was like, how is this sheared out kind of elongated system putting out, up to a foot of snow here? But, as time went on, you just realized it was a lot of moisture and very, very cold air.
And I think everything really kind of came into sync on Wednesday. So the snow began, Friday or Saturday afternoon, and then really kicked in Saturday night into early Sunday.
Yeah.
And the forecast models, the forecast out of the National Weather Service, our forecast here internally, and the four of us, haggle and debate over
Right.
what to do and where, pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say it was absolutely perfect. As you mentioned, the heavier snow moved slightly farther north, but for the most part, I think, we hit all the key points, and they did verify. That's unusual.
Yeah.
And typically, when the snow starts to fall around here and you're expecting, let's say, 4,
Yeah.
it'll like peter out at 2, and you're like,
Right.
whoa, 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 what happened? Yeah.
I think, honestly, I had seen a couple of posts about how they were sending out the hurricane hunters to sample the area of low pressure before it actually made it onto shore.
Did that really happen, or was that a hoax?
I believe that actually did happen.
Okay.
And then that data was ingested into the forecast models, I
Right.
believe, that Wednesday or Thursday. And that's when everything kind of started coming together. And
Yeah.
it didn't really change.
No, there was a real disparity early in the week. The European had it the whole time.
Yeah.
In fact, you and Arden said to me, if you looked at the European, this was like the Friday, the week before,
Right.
showing this big thing. And I said, well, yeah, but it's 7 days
A
out.
week
Who
out,
looks
yeah.
at that? And sure enough, and then the other model came around. So it does make it exciting. Do you have a gut feeling about the severe season then for the spring? How do you think this bodes for us?
I hope it bodes sunny and dry.
We're not wish casting here. I mean, now, and we all based our I guess our spitball, snowfall forecast
yeah.
on a La Nina winter.
Right.
And this is
Well,
the
maybe-
anomalous La
maybe you
Nina
guys
winter.
did.
Well, yeah.
Maybe
Just
you
flip
guys-
the coin.
I was manifesting a smaller winter than last year, so I went with a low overall snowfall forecast for the year. But those are always just for fun.
But we stand to be back to back,
Yeah.
in the 15 or greater inches of snow, which is a lot for here. I think I did some of the math, and like the average in 30 years is around 9 inches for a season, 9 or 8.
Yeah.
And in a 30-year average, I think it's around 12 for a season. But we've had so many years where we had like 1.5 inches for the whole year.
Where was that?
Yeah.
Where's that?
Well, it's long gone. So let's see. So you've been through anomalous tornadoes. We had all those tornadoes when you started in July.
Yes.
You went through an ice storm last year about this time, or early January.
Yeah.
And now this. So, any thoughts, impressions? You're going
Crazy.
to run screaming into the night?
Crazy weather around these parts, but yeah, it's definitely a brand new experience, something I've never experienced before. I mean, I've never even heard about heard an actual tornado siren or ever been in a tornado warning until I moved here. So that was an entirely new experience.
Yeah.
And then I living in Maine and Vermont, it's always snow in the winter. You don't really get a lot of.
Well, you came here to get away from the snow.
Yeah, exactly.
How's that working out for you?
It didn't work out too well. I think it followed me, and I feel like I've cursed the area with the eternal winter here.
What's the hype level when you were in Bangor for nor'easters coming up the coast? I'm sure it's kind of the same thing. Several days out, everybody's talking. Or is snow so commonplace there that it's like,
It really depends. If it's a full-on nor'easter, that'll get a lot more attention because then you're talking about, coastal erosion, coastal flooding. You've got, damaging wind gusts and, for a long period of time. So that's when you start to lose power, and that's when people start to get all up in arms. But, in terms of just if it was just a straight up snow event, we get stuff like that fairly common. I mean, at least once a week, I was, putting out snowfall maps with at least 3 to 5, 5 to 8, 8+ inches on it, weekly in Maine. But that's just a common occurrence there.
Yeah.
So, like, for instance, we would issue a first alert weather day for, any kind of snow here because it's just has a huge impact. But up there, we wouldn't really issue an alert day until it was above 5 inches. I'm not even kidding. We're like, oh, it's less than 5 inches. That's
forget it.
It's a Tuesday. That's
Yeah,
a Tuesday.
what else?
You don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. What are some other surprises you've had about the weather here in the Midwest?
It really does change quickly. Like, you don't have a lot of transitional seasons here. It goes from cold and snow, and then you're talking about 60s and maybe tornadoes in the next 2 weeks. So it really changes quickly around here. You don't really get to enjoy the shoulder seasons, the spring and the fall.
Right. Well, it keeps it exciting.
It does keep it exciting.
And of course you do a lot on social media, as we all do.
Yes.
And here on streaming. How have you found that? Do you enjoy the audience interaction and all that?
My favorite thing to do for our streaming shows is just to scroll through the comments at the very end and just talk to you guys. At this point, I feel like we've made actual friends on there, the same people joining, every night talking about the same thing. So I find that really fun, and it's a new way to engage with our audience that we haven't really been able to before.
And I think I saw the stat today, and of course, keep in mind this will be running a couple weeks after the winter storm. People will remember this winter storm, but it was our viewership was like 6.6 million views, of all these streams and social media things and stuff we push out on the app, which is just, where do they find 6.6 million people to look?
I don't know.
The tri-state population's like maybe 250,000, if that.
Yeah,
so
that is another good point you bring up because when we're on air, we don't really know how many people are watching at that moment.
Right.
But when we're on streaming,
you know exactly.
We've got a little counter in the top right corner that's like, oh, 2,000 people are watching you live right now. Okay.
Yeah, you better get it right.
Yeah, you better not sound dumb.
Yeah. What was the low point during the snow event for you? Did you ever have a moment where you thought, uh-oh, trouble?
Like for myself or in terms of the forecast?
Well, I don't know how personal you want to get.
In general, when did I run into trouble? Getting up the hill.
Here at the station.
Oh, yes. We'll talk. So getting up the hill Sunday was extremely difficult. We live on this steep hill, and whenever it snows, it just becomes very difficult to get up. And it's always a thing. We're like, oh, did you get up the hill? You got to make it to the second lower lot. That'll be your goal. But I hadn't had a problem before up until this snowstorm, and I was getting up the hill, really, really trying. I was just like doing everything you weren't supposed to get up this hill.
Spinning your wheels.
I'm spinning the wheel. I'm like gassing it. I'm like braking. I'm trying to like carve a path into the snow so my tires can grip the ground. I eventually get up the hill.
Yeah, they hadn't cleared the parking lot yet.
They hadn't cleared the parking lot. So then
happens.
I'm trudging through the parking lot in my car. I get to a spot that looks decently cleared out, and I'm, starting to put, my things together. I've got my jacket on. I've got, my lunchbox and my school bag with me with everything in it. And I start to go around the backside of my car, and I take one misstep, slips right under the other foot, and then both feet in the air, and I'm on the ground in a matter of a second. And I was like, oh.
In your very nice dress shoes. You weren't wearing boots.
And my full suit,
yeah.
dress shoes, no boots.
Yeah, and you walked in here, and I said, what's with the no boots? How could you forget your boots?
I was like, I don't know. It just slipped my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a nice little tumble there. So I would say that was my lowest point.
As long as you don't break a collarbone, we need you on the team here. I had to walk up the hill, so, I gave up.
You got stuck.
Well, I was in my wife's van. I drive a Camaro, which is, that's a problem all of its own in snow. You just won't go. And so, yeah, I got up here and the lot hadn't been cleared, so I'm like, okay, so I had to back down.
Right.
And but yeah, I think in all the years I've been here, I've only had to walk up just a couple times. I've always been able to make it one way or the other, by hook or by crook.
Right.
We were fortunate; none of us had to stay here for the night. We had, I mean, Byron Douglas might as well have. He was working, and
he was coming
from home and back and forth, and he was at the hotel with you all too.
Yeah.
Not in one room. We wanted people to actually sleep. So
I think they separated all of us on
yeah,
purpose.
I'm sure they did, probably by floor. So we're looking ahead to the summer, spring and summer months, and you kind of dodged it the first time around. But what do you think? Seriously, I'll tell you. I'll set it up this way.
Okay.
I had a feeling that this winter, not particularly the storm, but the winter would be not bad. I thought, well, we had our bad winter last year with the ice storm. We should be good.
Right.
So I was shocked, of course, that here we go with 12.5 inches of snow. I mean,
we started out...
The short-term forecast, we pretty much got right, but just overall, my expectation for the winter was that it would be a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, we've got to be due a quiet, severe season. We've had 2 record setters in a row.
Yeah.
But we also had 2 hard winters in a row. So, a three-peat?
I hope it's not a three-peat. I'm imagining an average spring. Something we could expect. We'll get a couple of those outbreaks, and then hopefully, that's it. We don't actually end up seeing, 1.5 million tornadoes like we have over the last 2 years.
The funny thing is, when you look back, at the records and you look at the calendar and you say, oh, well, we had our last snow on January the whatever. And, of course, you don't know that when you're in January. You're like, oh, I could do this every week in February. And so there's this kind of foreboding doom, as you go forward. But, yeah, hopefully we will break out and then, kind of glide through spring. That's always our sincere hope.
An easy spring.
Yeah, well, we can only hope on that. Any other surprises or anecdotes you want to share about the big winter storm?
Anecdotes. A little tip that I guess you gave me was I had packed a bunch of food in this cooler with me to survive in case that I couldn't leave this building for 2 days.
We would have sent the search dogs after you, but yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't actually pack any ice to put into my cooler. So all of the food was melting and going bad. And you were like, well, just put it in your car.
Yeah, I was like, put it in the trunk.
Right. So I put it in my trunk and it was frozen solid for 2 days straight.
You have to
and I thought that was a really nice tip. So.
Yeah, well, I try to specialize in those, or you can just stick it in the snowbank outside of the studio here.
A lot of options when it's just that cold outside.
There are. Well, Mike, I'm glad you're on the team and have been with us for this time, and of course that we all were able to, cover this.
Yes.
It was historic snow. We set records 2 days in a row. It wasn't the storm of the century, but it was pretty darn close,
at least one.
By tri-state, standards. So, all right, well, I'll let you get back. And of course, we're seeing more Michael Fecca now. I've been working on the inside look at this and also out and about projects, which is I've shifted my hours to dayside a little more, 3 days a week. So that means the tri-state gets to see you Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights now.
Yes.
How's that been for you?
It's been fun. We're having a good time. I've got the 2:30 stream in the afternoon. I've got the 9 o'clock at night and then the 10 o'clock show on air. So it's always a good time, getting to work with everybody, especially on the evening shift, which I never really got to beforehand.
During the week.
Yeah, during the week because I was always dayside. So it's just now it's a new set of people and, everyone's excited and happy to work.
And I'm home with my wife at night now. We were all going through these, kind of changes here, and people have said, well, what happened to you? And I said, no, I put myself on dayside. And that was all because Arden got the midday show.
Right.
And so they needed content in there. I said, I got an idea. And so everything has kind of shifted. So these are exciting times here at 14
Good
News.
shifts, and hopefully everybody's enjoying it.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Right.
That or the next snowstorm. We'll have to see how it plays out. Meteorologist Michael Fecca, thanks for coming out here today on Inside Look. If you want to listen to all the Inside Look podcasts, you can do that wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch on the 14 News YouTube channel. Don't forget What's the Trend with Aaron Weeks and Casey Mason. That goes every Friday. So we're building out the podcast universe here too. You need to do one on gardening and cooking, something you're adept at.
Listen, me and Arden have been talking about it. Arden's Gardens and Cooking Up a Storm.
I like it.
That could be the show names.
Yeah,
but
okay.
we'll
I'll write the proposal. But you have to do it at night because I'm off now for nights, at least for a while. With Michael Fecca, I'm Jeff Lyons. Thanks for joining.